Salut! We're gonna see les verbes pronominaux. So les verbes pronominaux, I think you know them because they are also called les verbes réflexifs, so reflexive verbs. And I don't like to call them reflexive verbs, and I call them verbes pronominaux, as we call them in French, and you're gonna understand why I chose to call them verbes pronominaux and not verbes réflexifs. So the verb pronominaux are verbs that are using another pronoun. So in fact they got two pronouns when they are conjugated. So for instance, if you take the verb laver, to wash, so you wash either someone or something, you can wash your car for instance, that is a normal verb, right? Laver. Now if I put se laver, that would mean to wash oneself. Okay, so you can see that is a pronoun, oneself, se laver. So if you conjugate that, then you would have je me lave. If you conjugate it in present tense, this is regular, er verb, and this pronoun will change. Je me lave, tu te laves, il se lave, nous lavons, vous lavez, and il se lave. So as you can see, je me lave, I wash myself. Tu te laves, you wash yourself. Il se lave, elle se lave, on se lave, the same here. He, she, one washes himself, herself, oneself. Nous lavons, we wash ourselves. Vous lavez, you wash yourselves. And ils se lavent, they wash themselves. Okay, so the infinitive is with se, and as you can see, you've got two pronouns. The first one is the pronoun sujet, so it's the one that does the action, and me here would be a pronom réfléchi, as we call them in French, and that indicates the fact that this action is made by that subject onto this subject, and this one are in fact the same person. So je me lave, you've got the idea that you wash yourself, so I wash myself, je me lave, I wash myself, so I do the action on who? On me. Okay? So je me lave, tu te laves, il se lave, nous lavons, vous lavez, il se lave. So in fact we have je me, tu te, il se, nous, vous, il se. And then your verb. Okay? So that is a pronominal verb, a verb pronominal. Okay? Because it does use another pronoun. So you have two pronouns. Les verbes pronominal in passé composé, in the past tense, they are using être as an auxiliary. If you don't know what I'm saying, just check my passé composé video and you might understand it. Okay? Now, we're gonna study a bit more about these verb pronominals. And in fact, the first, I would say, aspect of these pronominal verbs, the first one is in fact the reflexive aspect. So as you can see here, when I'm saying je me lave, in fact I say I wash myself. So this is reflexive. You're doing an action on yourself. So it's a reflection. So reflexive. So the reflexive aspect of the verb pronominal is that the action is made on the same person. So the same person, the person who does the action, who makes the action, is receiving the action as well. So that is the reflexive aspect. Okay. Then we have the réciproque aspect. Reciprocal. Reciprocal means that you have, for instance, two individuals and they're doing an action on each other. For instance, if we take another verb, for instance, we can take se couper. Se couper, and for instance, if I conjugate this er verb, so very regular verb, il se coupe, without any context, I don't know if it is reflexive, they cut themselves, or if it is reciprocal, they cut each other. So the context helped me. In English, you've got a different way of saying those two aspects. themselves or each other. In French, we're using the same tool, the same method, which is verb pronominal. So this one, se couper, can be either reflexive or reciprocal. So this one means either they call themselves or they call each other. Okay? The context most of the time helps you. Now, sometimes the verb itself will tell you if it's reciprocal or reflexive. If you think about, for instance, the verb se téléphoner, to phone here, so se téléphoner, you can't phone yourself. I mean, you can, but most of the time the context will say they call each other rather than themselves. Okay, so you see here the very meaning of the verb indicates that it's going to be more likely a reciprocal aspect than the reflexive one. But you can have two people calling themselves to know where their phone are. That's totally fine as well. But most of the time you have two people calling each other. So it's a reciprocal aspect. Okay, so that was my first aspect. That's the second one. Then the third aspect is in fact not really an aspect on itself. It's just that the verb, the pronominal verb can't be not pronominal. So because of the very meaning of the verb, it doesn't exist. Not in a pronominal form. So for instance, if I take se suicider, that means to suicide. Because suicider is obviously on yourself, you can't suicide someone, right? Suicide means in fact to kill oneself. So that is pronominal, and in fact you can't have suicider on his own. So you will tell me, yeah, this is reflexive because you're doing an action on yourself, and I agree with you, but the difference between these kind of verbs is that laver can be used on his own, and that is to wash something or someone. But here you can't have suicider on his own. You can't suicide someone. It has to be se suicider. So it has to be always pronominal. So this is, I would say, not really an aspect, but it's just, okay, different categories, families of verb pronominal. And the fourth one is in fact voix passive, the passive voice. I'm going to make another video later on about that, but just for now, for you to understand, it is very used in French and a lot of Latin languages as well, so Italian, Spanish will understand. For instance, I have the verb manger, which is to eat. Se manger could be reflexive, I eat myself, but well, not really used. Could be reciprocal, eat each other, not really used in case of maybe zombies or cannibals. But manger can be used without the pronominal form, so it's not one of these categories. So it has to be this category, voix passive, and in fact it means to be eaten. An example, if I say la pizza se mange chaude, that means the pizza is eaten warm. So people eat pizza warm, okay? Se mange. You see? So if you got a verb like that, you can't say the pizza is eaten warm. Doesn't mean so much. It doesn't mean anything really. So you have to understand it as a passive voice. The pizza is eaten by people warm. Okay, so the pizza doesn't do any actions. It's in fact people who are eating pizzas warm. So the pizza is eaten warm. And that form is in a lot of Latin languages is used a lot, and in French obviously it's used a lot as well. So if you have a pronominal verb, you have to ask yourself a few questions. What category does that verb belong to? If you got a verb and you try the reflexive aspects, the fact that the subject does an action on himself or herself, then you end up in the reflexive aspects. For instance, se laver, je me lave, I wash myself. Does that mean something? Yes, okay, boom, this is reflexive. Then we have another aspect which is reciprocal, which is on each other. So does your verb mean something like each other, such as se téléphoner? Yes, they call each other, then it is reciprocal. Then you have to ask yourself, if you don't have these things, if these things don't mean anything, then you have to ask, you have to go through the third category. Does your verb is in fact only pronominal? Yes, so therefore it is pronominal, and you can't really ask, there's no really meaning sometimes. You're gonna see there are some verbs in this category that are pronominal and you don't really understand why. It's just like that, you have to accept them. They don't exist without the pronominal form. And then, if that still don't make any sense, you have to go and think about the fourth aspect, which is the voix passive. And in fact, like this is a good example of the voix passive. The pizza is eaten warm. And in fact, if you think about it, one of the first things you learned in French was je m'appelle Thomas. And je m'appelle, it is a pronominal verb. Je m'appelle Thomas. And in fact, when you say je m'appelle Thomas, what is it? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Je m'appelle Thomas. I call myself Thomas. Not really good as a translation. I never call myself, right? So it's not really what I mean by je m'appelle Thomas. Is it reciprocal? No, because je m'appelle, there's no one with me here, so it can't be I call Thomas each other. It doesn't mean anything, so it's not here. Does appeler works on his own? Yes, I can call someone, so it is not one of these aspects. So it has to be this one, passive voice. And in fact, if you translate it as I am called Thomas by people, I am called Thomas, then that makes sense. Much more than I call myself. I call myself doesn't mean anything. I never like, Thomas, yeah. I never call myself. But I am called by people, Thomas. So this, je m'appelle, is in fact a voix passive, passive voice. Okay? The last thing I'd say about the pronominal verbs is that you have some verbs and they will have one meaning when they are not pronominal and another meaning when they are pronominal. Instance, attendre, to wait. Attendre, to wait. If you put that in a pronominal form, s'attendre, then it's to expect. You expect something. So you see the meaning is not too far, but yet different. J'attends Martin, I wait for Martin. Je m'attends à ce que Martin soit en retard, I expect Martin to be late. Okay, so you have a different aspect here, different meaning even. So be careful, there are some verbs and you will have another meaning when they are in a pronominal form. Okay? I hope that helped. Au revoir!